see four major areas in the industry that we need to address from the food and beverage industry. One is obviously sustainability. How do we go about sustainability and making more our production and manufacturing in the future more sustainable? How can we reduce waste? How can we reuse energy, water, and how can we recycle the material? When it comes to productivity and being more, we know in the food and beverage industry that our asset utilization, basically how much we use in the equipment, is quite low compared to other industry. So how can we improve the asset utilization in the factories, at the same time being flexible, as we saw ABB talking about, personalizing product and so on, and meeting this challenge of these two things. Of course, food safety, quality and waste is almost taken for granted in food safety. We need to have food safe and available. But how can we make the cost of that? So we're making sure that the cost for quality and the cost for poor quality is efficient. And how can we go from today a quite reactive approach in quality and food safety to a proactive to avoid any mistakes happening? And last but not least, how do we interact with our end consumers? How are we building the experience around our products? How do we interact with them? How do we make sure to keep brand loyalty with our consumers? So the way we see the future food and beverage factory is, of course, a lot about connectivity. We need to connect the devices in the factory because it's based on data. So if you get the right data to help you taking the right decision and solving the problems in the factory. So one key element here is, of course, connectivity, meaning also utilities, equipment, and production floor, and even transportation. But for us, it's very important to find the use case of all this technology. What problems are we actually solving? So we're not putting technology there only for the sake of technology. We need to be quite clear about what is the use case. One example is, for example, supporting the personnel with augmented reality, where you can connect to expertise when you need in the future. Another one that I will talk more about, and a specific case that we are working quite a lot with in TetraPak, is predictive maintenance, where you predict failures before it actually happens. So going into that, I will actually show a short movie explaining how we see predictive maintenance in TetraPak. Okay, so this is our predictive maintenance module. So how do we predict failures in the future from our equipment? So we will, first of all, equip all the equipment in the manufacturing with the right equipment to making sure that before anything stops, we can get the alarm before and the notification in advance. So we can make sure that this doesn't go wrong. And then we keep the production running up at all the time. By connecting this to the cloud and artificial intelligence, we can also supervise and learning from this data. So every time there is a failure, we can see and learn from that, and also starting to predict when we see patterns of these failures is happening. And then by that, learning and communicating to the customers in advance to making sure we take the right actions at the right time. So it's a loop system where you have the equipment, storing the data and the information in the cloud, communicating with people that can analyze this data and also learn from it, and then communicating back to the shop floor, making sure that we take the appropriate actions on the shop floor at the right time. So this is one example of Industry 4.0, how we put it into practice with predictive maintenance. And this is something we do quite a lot already in TetraPak. So I will show one case in South America where we have done this, where we have seen great savings. Due to that, we are avoiding unplanned downtime, which is, of course, a big problem when it happens. We have in here been able to reduce 140 hours of unplanned downtime, which is, of course, both the waste it can create, but also the planning of this so it doesn't happen in time. And this means, of course, quite a lot of money as well in savings. And here in this case, it's 120,000 per line we are saving in these specific examples. So we are in this process already. We have already, because again, it's based on data. It's the data that we collect. And the more data we have, the more insights and more learnings we can do. And based on this data, we have already now over 5,000 lines connected where we collect data, and over 150 lines with this predictive and maintenance function up and running today. This is, of course, just the beginning, and the more connectivity we will have and the more learning we can do, the more and better predictions we can do. So this is just in the beginning. So, to summarize, the key point is to understand how we should use the technology, but also meeting the challenges of production, coming back to these trends that we see. So how do we meet the challenges with the technology in a cooperation with a partnership? Because no one can do this alone. And here on this exhibition, we have, together with ABB, Ericsson, and XM Reality, made a demonstration of how we believe future manufacturing will be in the coming years. So please take a look there as well in that one. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. You do that voiceover really well, Mr. Johansson.
Thank you. It was
you have a career in that, I think. To be on a more serious note, can you talk about how smart industry solutions also contribute to sustainability?
Yeah, it's a good question and a big question, of course. So what we are doing is several things in the manufacturing. Together with ABB, actually, we do what we call energy assessments, where we go in, analyze the current situation and current status for a factory. Where are they today? Where are the big consumption of energy? How can we improve that? But it's also about reducing waste. How can we, by better planning, better running, reducing waste in the operation? One example that we see is, for example, heat can also be a waste. So if you have excessive heat, there are already technologies to turn that heat into electricity directly and storing that in batteries. So there are several things we can do, of course.
And those are substantial improvements in terms of
Absolutely.
Sustainability?
Very much,
okay.
Very much so.
Looking forward to meeting you over in the expo area
Absolutely.
later. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Mr. Johansson.